Okay, I'm not going to take time to go through a lot of video production on this stuff, but I want to address some questions from one of the watchers by the name of Walt Schoenley. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, but it was a response question to a video that I made actually I think over a year ago about Harbor Freight expanding their Thunderbolt solar power stuff. And I'm going to explain a couple of things about Harbor Freight and solar power and off-grid usage, because it's a point where a lot of us started, but it's not where a lot of us end up. So if you want to save some money along the way, I think Harbor Freight's a great store. There's a Harbor Freight just a few blocks from where I live. I shop there frequently. But what I've learned over the years from spending probably thousands of dollars there is that, some of this stuff works out pretty well, some of it doesn't. Some of it's appropriate for the off-grid usage. And but I want to get into why we're going to talk about some things on solar power. Okay, it's in a lot of my other videos, especially from the ones about a year and a half ago, I talk about the poverty of power situation in most off-grid setups, especially when somebody's only part-time or new to the off-grid living situation. I split my time between off-grid locations and then a regular rental in a regular city. So a lot of times when you see my videos, I take the videos, I do the videos out at an off-grid location, then I go back to the city where I'm totally on-grid to do a lot of my online stuff. So I split my time between on-grid and off-grid. So I don't live off-grid full-time, but I do live off-grid part-time. And what I found on the off-grid situations when I was dealing with the Harbor Freight stuff, when I was new, when I wasn't shopping around as well as I could have been, and finding out where things make a lot of sense, I was definitely under the poverty of power situation, which means that a lot of the lifestyle is, okay, how can we get by on not much electricity? How do we get by in a poverty of power situation? Now, what's happened is, by combining with other people, by getting far better deals on solar panels, I'm up to the point where I even, at one of the off-grid locations, we run some pretty powerful tools. I was even welding some racks for a solar panel setup using the solar panels. The solar panels we had laid out on an improvised rack system. It didn't look good enough to put in a video yet, and because there was some stuff that's still looking a little junky. But I was actually running one of the Harbor Freight wire feed welders off of the solar panels on the improvised system as I built the rack for what will be the permanent system. So there is a point when you have enough power off of solar. And at that same location, when a lot of other people got these little improvised laundry tubs and stuff, we've got a regular washing machine. I throw my clothes in the washer and I do them. One of the biggest achievements at that place is being able to flush a toilet, because that meant getting the water in, the water system in. I have a solar-powered water system where the pumps for the water pressure are all 12 volt. They run off of a solar system. They've been 100% reliable for since I put it together. And so there's a lot of things you take for granted in the city, like flushing a toilet, and we don't fully realize what that symbolizes with the amount of infrastructure that goes in place. So when we talk about that, we have either a poverty of power or cost of power situation. What kind of money should you be spending? That varies a lot according to the situation. I started out buying the Harbor Freight panels on coupons on their kits, because here in a local newspaper we get these little coupon packs, right? So if you have a Harbor Freight store anywhere near where you live and you get these little coupon packs in your Sunday paper, grab a Sunday paper. It's worth a couple of bucks to get a Sunday paper to get these flyers. The thing you also need to realize is, very often there's more than one flyer in a Sunday paper. If I'm not mistaken, most of these, more than a couple of these came out of the same Sunday paper, out of the same weekend paper. They're a lot of these came out of the same Sunday paper. You get the free stuff when you go into the store, like this one's a tape measure. Okay, dig through the coupons. You're going to find their latest on their solar panel setup. That's $139.99. Now, when it's not on sale, it's $249.99. So if you're just to be a schmuck walking into the store, you can actually pay the higher price, and they will not volunteer information to you about there being a coupon out there in circulation. So let's get into the cost per watt on a 12-volt system. You really need about 500 watts to have a system that you could even start to significantly live with. However, I will say this: if you get down to, let's say, the two 45-watt kits, we're talking about the 90 watts worth of power, you can work with that on a low level. You can work with that. You can run some laptops. You can charge some power tool batteries. It is workable. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish, but you can work as low as one of those 45-watt kits. If you're kind of going to be living a little house on a prairie style most of the time, you can make a little bit work. But let's look at what somebody starts spending on solar power. And when you're looking at 12-volt systems, and we're mainly just looking at the solar panels here, okay? If you're paying more than $3 a watt, okay, you're either getting ripped off or there's extras included. Now, on the solar kits from Harbor Freight, they're going to include some extras, which are a charge controller and a couple of lights and a little rack system. What I found out is I was really getting everything put together. I really didn't need those things. The charge controller on there is kind of slick in that it does some voltage reducing stuff. It works as a standalone item, kind of okay. But if you're trying to really do any serious off-grid, it's just a starter system. In fact, my starter system, which I beefed up from that, I sold to a guy for $60. And I even threw in some extra stuff with it because he's going to set it up. The guy's practically homeless, and he's going to set it up on an improvised boat barge thing that he lives on out in the river. And you'll see that in some future videos because I'm going to help him put it together too. My thing with charitable stuff, if you give it to somebody totally for free, they're just going to take it for granted, probably not appreciate it, and trash it. You got to. One thing I've figured out over the years of doing kind of charitable things, hooking people up, is if you make it totally for free, then it's just you're just getting taken advantage of, or they're not even going to really appreciate it. So over $3 a watt, there's got to be something else included. $3 a watt on solar panels is retail. Now, one of the problems with this is when you start talking about, 200-watt panels, 140-watt panels, 50-watt panels, that sort of a thing, a lot of people know that they can get it for, let's say 33% less, around $2 a watt, mail order, or somebody's hooking them up. And usually where you're going to find that kind of stuff is somebody who is local. They purchased in bulk, they're selling out of their garage, or maybe there's some kind of online sources. In order to get down to $1 a watt, you have to have a real special hookup, but it's almost always going to require bulk purchasing, and it may not include shipping, which means maybe somebody lives near a warehouse, or you'll see it advertised at $1 a watt online, and don't be surprised if you're dealing with $100 shipping charges to get the stuff to you. It's large, it's heavy. It's one of the reasons why there's going to be a fair amount of markup in solar panels. It's the size and weight of larger panels. If it's less than $1 a watt, I say somebody else got ripped off. Somebody got ripped off along the way. There's been some complexities in the way import taxes have worked on solar panels. So in a sense, sometimes the only ones getting ripped off is going to be the tax man. And there's a roundabout way some of this happens. We don't see it up in Portland, Oregon, where I'm at, but you'll see it in some of the southern states. I won't talk about it online, but there are ways that solar panels more or less legitimately trade hands at less than $1 a watt. And it usually involves something that was designated for export only, or it was surplus from a business that went bankrupt, or somebody had to buy a case of them. I mean a pallet of them, because they had to do a bulk purchase for a home installation, and there was a little bit of overage on the construction supplies that somebody didn't declare. I'm not saying it's always illegal when it's under $1 a watt, but somebody somewhere is taking a hit. In my situation, when I start selling these kits at below $1 a watt, that's because I'm kind of being a little charitable, or it's slightly used or something like that. Now, if you're going to shop at Harbor Freight, because you're talking about a lot of those connector boxes and stuff that they have and charge controllers, I've tested a lot of that stuff, and it's in some of my other videos, although I've not tested all of it. I did check a lot of it out in the store as time went on. And what I'm finding with Harbor Freight in general on their off-grid stuff, what they're really good for, when I'm building a power system, I think their inverters are pretty good for the money. Case by case basis, you can find better deals elsewhere, but there's a convenience issue of Harbor Freight, there's a warranty issue. They usually cover stuff. If you bought it from them, you can buy the extended warranty. I generally favor, I don't mind getting inverters at Harbor Freight, even though it may not be the absolute lowest price out there, it may not be the absolute best specifications. You get the coupons, use the 20% coupon on the inverter. You're not making a mistake by buying it. Although, if you're really going to live off the inverter, and what I found even with the top brands, you want to have a backup. You want to have one that if something goes wrong with the inverter is usually the weak link in the system. You want to have another one that you can plug in right away. Tools, I think the tools are just fine. Especially if it doesn't have any electrical or not a lot of moving parts, it's going to be just fine. Light duty connectors, they have a little connector kit that uses those little SAE connectors. Light duty connectors, or that little hub system you picked up, those are okay as long as it's light duty. And then they have those ready to go power packs, those little 5-to-1 power packs. Now I've heard a rumor that they took those off the market, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on with that, but I consider those good because it saves you the trouble of building one when you're doing a solar generator. And then the small amorphous solar panels. They have a line of solar panels. Nearly all of the Harbor Freight solar panels are the amorphous style. That's as opposed to monocrystalline or polycrystalline. And amorphous panels are more tolerant of low light situations, where monocrystalline, polycrystalline panels, they produce a lot of power, but they need a lot of sunlight. If they're not out in some relatively direct sunlight, you're just not going to get much out of them. The thing about amorphous solar panels is they take up a lot of space. A Harbor Freight solar array that I have that was a 60-watt array is 4 of those 15-watt panels that come with this kit. Takes up the space that I could normally produce about 120 watts in using polycrystalline solar panels. So amorphous panels take up a lot of space. If you're doing this on a building or certain types of portable arrays where it's not necessarily out all the time on a portable, but you don't have a storage space issue with it, you can just, you have a barn or a larger garage, you keep it in, that's fine. If it's going to be permanently installed on a building and you have a lot of roof space on that building and you want to help protect your roofing material from the weather anyway, or maybe it just doesn't matter, the amorphous panels are fine for that. The thing that I found with my portable stuff and on the RV stuff is that I need to be efficient by weight and space, because the roof of an RV has very limited amounts of space. So I need to produce more power in that limited amount of space than what amorphous panels really can provide me. I still have some amorphous panels on a roof of my camper trailer. I'm probably eventually going to remove them and sell them or give them to somebody or put them on a small shed building. What Harbor Freight's not good for is the cordless tools. I found that as low as you can go and still have relatively decent cordless tools is the Ryobi stuff from Home Depot. But the Harbor Freight stuff is improving. I would expect if you're watching this video 3 or 4 years from now, This part may no longer be true. They may have actually come out with a really decent, comprehensive lithium-ion based power tool line. Right now, 2013, they're not doing it yet. Yes, they have a couple of tools here and there which are decent. They're not wonderful, they're decent. But they've not perfected it. They've not standardized their batteries. A lot of their stuff is still a little junky. But yes, they have a few tools here and there which are decent, okay tools and a good fair deal. Main problem with them right now is it's not consistent. They're not consistently good, and the batteries are not compatible tool to tool. Very often they're not compatible. Their charge controllers, not very good. Not only are they not very good, but they're overpriced. You get accustomed to thinking that Harbor Freight means you get a lot for the money. Their charge controllers, I'm giving them a thumbs down. And that's more or less across the board, except for one of their 7-watt charge controllers, which is okay. I'm not saying it's wonderful, but it's okay. The thing is, you can do a lot better with the other charge controllers on Amazon.com for less money. Larger systems, there's a few people out there that are taking and combining a whole lot of these kits to make a larger system. And that's what I originally did. And what I found out is it's not cost effective. And it's not. It's not very cost effective. I wouldn't deal with them on larger systems. Their deep cycle batteries are also not a very good deal. They're mainly in the store as a convenience issue for somebody who's buying everything on the same trip. Batteries are better. You're better off getting them through an auto parts store or somebody who deals a lot of batteries all the time. Sometimes in larger cities you have stores that specialize in batteries. You deal with a store that has batteries all the time, then they can usually either they have deep cycle batteries or they can get them, and they can usually hustle better deals on them. In the northern states, sometimes there's some farm and ranch supply places. They deal with a lot of batteries for tractors. Cold weather tends to kill batteries more than the temperate, lower, warmer climates do. And so, for whatever reasons, in the northern states, there's more business in that, and there's more people hustling better deals and lower prices for more performance on batteries. The Harbor Freight store is kind of standardized. Their $79 deep cycle battery just isn't that good of a deal compared to what I can get at a auto parts store. Hopefully this will answer some of your questions and explain the situation if you're basing an off-grid system on Harbor Freight. If you get these coupons at $139, it's not terrible. You know, what I would say, that the low-cost small kits are tolerable. They're okay. You're not fucking up. You're not making a huge mistake by getting it. They're good for the educational. They're kind of a science fair kids grade thing. That's not a horrible thing. I took some of these little motion sensing security lights, LED security lights. I put them in a kid's playhouse that I built at a neighbor's place, and they love it. You know, they just love having this whole playhouse thing for the kids with solar lighting on there. Yeah, I even put one of this little kit right here on their playhouse. Everybody was perfectly happy, although it's hard to say how long it would last. It's just not very expensive, and so they, you know, it's kind of neat to have this little off-grid solar playhouse, little conversation when people are having their kids over and playing on the whole swing set thing there. So yeah, you know, science fair grade stuff. I mean, the kids are going to grow up understanding off-grid power. That's kind of cool. A lot of Harbor Freight stuff is pretty good. I just don't think they've really matured in the business as well as they could on solar power stuff. So if you have questions about setting up off-grid systems, and you're self-teaching, it's okay to play with the Harbor Freight. Just don't expect that to be the conclusion of where you're going to want to be with the stuff.